Good afternoon, I'm Vashon Brown with the Midday News. Special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. I remind as well that you can watch TVJ live by downloading our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1 followed by the words Spot Media. We begin this afternoon with the latest on Hurricane Irma. The hurricane has strengthened into an extremely dangerous Category 5 storm, threatening to slam into some northeastern Caribbean islands and Puerto Rico by Wednesday. A hurricane watch is in effect for Guadeloupe and a tropical storm warning for Dominica. In response, all schools in Dominica were ordered closed this morning. Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, who made the announcement, said they are to remain closed tomorrow. The country's emergency shelter system has been activated in preparation for the effects of Hurricane Irma. Authorities warned that the storm could dump up to 10 inches of rain, cause landslides and dangerous flash floods, as well as generate waves of up to 23 feet. The storm's center is expected to move near or over the northern Leeward Islands late today and early tomorrow. Meanwhile, hurricane warnings were issued for Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Martin and Puerto Rico, as well as the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. Hurricane Irma is expected to be within the vicinity of Jamaica late Thursday evening. Meanwhile, Irma is also expected to take aim at the U.S. mainland. We go to the CNN for that report.
Hurricane Irma has intensified rapidly into now a Category 5 storm. That means it is packing winds of 175 miles per hour. Hurricane warnings are up for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. This monster storm is now posing a major threat to millions of people in Florida. So let's get right to CNN meteorologist Chad Myers with the latest forecast. You predicted this within the past few minutes, Chad, and now here we are.
Well, we just watched the Hurricane Hunter aircraft fly through it, Allison, and we saw wind gusts of 186 and 192 aloft, you know, where planes fly, 7,000 feet. That's where those Hurricane Hunter aircraft, you tried to say, fly. But the fact is now the winds are getting down to the surface here, probably close to 175. So Anguilla and the BVI and the U.S. Virgin Islands, you are under warnings, and it's a done deal for you. You are going to get this storm. You are going to get the track of the storm right over some of those islands. And if you do, the winds at 175 will be devastating. As we move it along to the DR and to Haiti, there's a lot of mountainous areas here. That may tear the storm up a little bit. But notice what happened at the 8 o'clock advisory. This number at 5 o'clock said the storm in the Florida Straits somewhere around 130. Now it says 150. So that's even more impressive because the storm back here is more impressive. There are mountains in here. And those mountains will catch some of the rain. It will tear the storm up just a little bit. So this track, although not quite set in stone, is certainly pretty, obvious where this thing probably goes.
The National Security Council met this morning at a Jamaica House amid questions about whether murder figures for Mount Salem St. James, which is now a zone of special operations, are accurate. Reports emerged yesterday that the figures released by the police during the declaration of the zone were a combination of murders and shootings. The National Security Council is chaired by the Prime Minister. Mount Salem and its environs were last Friday declared the first zone of special operations. Declaring that no longer will any area remain a haven for criminals to hide, Prime Minister Andrew Holness said there was ample evidence of rampant criminality and violence to declare the area a zone of special operations. It was reported that Mount Salem has recorded 54 murders so far this year, while there were 85 murders in 2016. It was also reported that there were 12 major gangs operating in the area. In the meantime, Chief Executive Officer of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Dennis Chung, says a thorough investigation is needed to determine whether the murder figures for Mount Salem are accurate or whether they're inaccurate. He says the finding should be made public. Mr. Chung says the development is unacceptable.
This is not a spontaneous operation. It is something that has been planned for a while, and therefore, we need to get the numbers right. Because you're basically acting on the numbers, and I mean, this is one incident, but the question is, what other information out there are we acting incorrectly on because we don't have the right numbers behind it? So what it really speaks to is the credibility of the JCF, and therefore it's very important that this be addressed by the Commissioner, I would think.
Meanwhile, officials from the Zone of Special Operations are insisting that it remains in place. That's despite the security forces removing barricades from lanes leading into the Mount Salem community. Major Baza Jarrett of the Jamaica Defense Force explained why the barricades were removed.
You will see cordons in place, but for all intents and purposes, the restrictions on general movement into the Zone of Special Operations have been eased.
Meanwhile, Councillor for the Mount Salem Division, Carrie Thomas, says even after removing the barricades, the community is willing to continue working with the Zone of Special Operations. He stated that the operation can be used to lift the standard of the community, the living conditions and educational level of the residents.
The community need serious infrastructural improvement. There are significant number of the community members who live on lots that still need titles. There are significant sanitary infrastructure that needs to be upgraded. There are issues with at-risk youths within the community that still need to have an education and a trade to go out there. There are still young primary school children that needs to get a proper education before they become at risk. So there are significant work that needs to be done in this community to ensure that it will never reach a stage where you have to declare another ZOSA in here for whatever reason, and ensure that when we leave here, it is a much better community than the one you came in and saw.
And a team from the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDICOM, including Commissioner Terence Williams, yesterday toured communities within the Zone of Special Operations in Mount Salem. The team met with the ground commander, Superintendent Kirk Ricketts.
Then we were able to independently go through the community, speak to members of security forces, but more so speak to citizens. We were able to give them INDICOM information, INDICOM leaflets and brochures, so that if they had any complaint, they would know how to make those complaints. We asked them how it had been so far, and no one reported any misconduct by the security forces, and everyone seemed to be understanding of the situation and seemed relatively cooperative. And they seemed very appreciative of the professionalism of the security forces on the ground.
The team also traveled to Granville in St. James,
where there had been a shooting on Saturday, where citizens had blocked the road. We spoke to those citizens. We urged them to end the roadblock, pointed out to them that we are investigating that case as we do all fatal cases with great vigor, and we hope to get to the truth.
And still in St. James, staff of the Anchovy Primary School are concerned about the safety of their students as the spate of crime becomes intense in the parish. Principal of the Anchovy Primary School, Gerald Lawrence, says Anchovy is considered one of the hot spots for crime, and from time to time the school faces challenges there.
There are children who come from communities nearby. Sometimes shooting takes place and they may stop from school. When time these things happen, you will have reduced attendance.
Mr. Lawrence added that the school also suffers from a great deal of vandalism.
Is when I come here on a Monday morning and nothing is done. That's what surprises me. Because periodically they come in here and they break in the school, take out the window blades, break into the tuck shop, take the garbage bins, throw them all about the place. Just destructive. Take paint, mark up the place. Last year they stole one of the tanks. That would have been the second tank they have stolen since the past 2 years. These are some of the concerns we have, and we would hope that we would have a time when children can come to school and the school is freed from any such vandalism, and therefore gives a teacher more comfort to work.
In Granville, St. James, residents yesterday continued to protest the police killing of 27-year-old Curtis Coke. The residents have been blocking roads since the shooting on Saturday. They say he was shot for no reason and was unarmed.
So and then do that, then reverse the Jeep and throw the youth in the Jeep back. I no swear then throw him, I hear when then throw sitting in there, so boom. And so then throw him, one I turn up there so, on the fence, say boy dead. And the man said, yeah man, he dead already man. And they laughing, bust out, and then them come back up at the gate and point on the one house, a wall house down there. So, and say, one of the house there. And one of them say, which part up there? So the other one, them, I don't know who them attack. And they have a booking on there, and I saw them move with the youth and came.
Our news center contacted the police corporate communications unit, which said the report from the officers on the ground is that the man was armed and that he shot at officers. They added that a gun was recovered. Meanwhile, the protest disrupted classes at Granville Primary, and parents were asked to pick up students early yesterday. 2 men were killed during an attack in Huntspen, Clarendon last night. The men are identified as 22-year-old Roshane Simpson, unemployed, of Shelter Rock, Spanish Town, and 22-year-old Cleon Edith, construction worker of Huntspen in Clarendon. Reports are that shortly after 10 Monday night, both Simpson and Edith were in a house when gunmen entered and opened fire. Both men received gunshot wounds to the head. They were taken to the Maypen Hospital, where they were pronounced dead. Despite calls for an end to the stoning of Jamaica Urban Transit Company JUTC buses, there has been another act of vandalism. JUTC Managing Director Paul Abrams says a bus was damaged in Bull Bay, St. Andrew on Sunday night. The windshield, back and side glass were damaged.
I'm not sure that an individual can throw 3 stones at one time, one in the windshield, one in the back glass, one on the side glass. It obviously means that it's more than one person throwing stones at the one bus now. Something that we're grappling with and trying to figure out what this dangerous and senseless act is. That bus now that was damaged yesterday evening is probably going to cost maybe close to $1 million plus just to change glass in it.
He told our news center last week that the police will provide additional patrols along JUTC routes. There have been more than 70 attacks on the company's buses this year. A new international secondary school has been launched in Rose Hall, St. James, the Rose Hall Academy. Now, the academy will cater to a wide range of students within the region and will consist of approximately 80 students. Classes will start from 7th grade to the 12th grade. This new educational institution will also cater to students interested in sporting activities. Member of Parliament for West Central St. Catherine, Christopher Tufton, will be setting up vocational training centres for young people in the area. The centres will be set up at the Tatius Golding High School, Kitson Town and Friendship in St. Catherine. Dr. Tufton says most young people in the area lack opportunities and are unable to sustain themselves after high school. He was speaking at a GSAT Awards ceremony in St. Catherine on Sunday.
Many of them leave the school system and need a new skill. They have some subjects. But leaving high school is not qualification to go to the job market. It is just preparation for you to get some further training so you can become a skilled person in a particular area. One of the worst things you can do when somebody asks you what kind of work you can do, you tell them, say, every little thing.
In sports, West Indies batsman Marlon Samuels has warned England's Ben Stokes to stay on the boundary in the limited overs matches this month. The pair have clashed several times, notably when Samuels saluted after Stokes' dismissal in a test in 2015. The sides play a solitary T20 at Durham on September 16 before a 5-match ODI series starts on September 19. Samuels says he will go to England and be a good boy, at least for the start. He added that as long as Stokes keeps quiet, he won't start anything, and that if something happens, Stokes would have to say something to him first. Samuels also said Stokes should stay on the boundary when he's batting, as far away as possible. Stokes and Samuels exchanged words during the second test in Grenada in 2015, after which Samuels said, "The English boys don't learn." When Stokes was dismissed later in the game, Samuels stood and saluted as the all-rounder left the field. Stokes, who is 26, said Samuels lacks respect after he put his feet on the table during a news conference following West Indies' World T20 final victory over England in 2016. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for a primetime news package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.